Okay, today we're talking about these more complex Punnett squares. So you're going to learn how to do these really complex Punnett squares. There are actually three of them, and I need you to write them down in your notes right at the top left corner there. There are three of them, and one of them is called sex-linked traits. Um, the next one is called incomplete dominance, and then lastly we have something called codominance. Go ahead and write those two down, and then we'll talk about each one individually. So here's our first one. We're talking about sex-linked traits. Sex-linked traits um, are traits that only affect one or both of the sexes. So some traits are only found on one chromosome, and these traits can probably only affect more of one sex than the other. So what you're going to write down is some traits affect only one chromosome or one sex. Um, so let's take a look. Color blindness is a sex-linked trait. And so if we have color blindness as a sex-linked trait, over here on the right, I have a key for you. And this key is telling us that the XX is a female, just like normal, and it's a normal female. The XY is a normal male. Nothing wrong with this male. He does not have color blindness. Then we have this trait right here, which is an XB subscript Y, which is telling us that this is a male, and it has the B color blindness trait. And then we've got the next one being an XXB subscript, which is just a female carrier. And then lastly, we have XBXB being a colorblind female. So what you're going to be able to look at is, first of all, you should be able to already tell me, why is this just a carrier and why is this one actually a colorblind female? You should also be able to tell me which trait is the sex-linked colorblindness one. And you should be able to say that the X is the one that causes colorblindness. If something is attached to the X, then you could potentially have colorblindness. And this is just for this trait. So why is the male colorblind? Even though he only has one X, X, B, and Y, why is he colorblind? Well, that is because he only has one X to give away. If that X is affected, then he could become colorblind. The next thing that you should be able to tell me is, what is a carrier? A carrier is a female, because a female has two X's. A carrier is a female who is heterozygous. Heterozygous. That means that she is affected on one X, but not affected on the other X. This would just cause the female to carry the trait, but she would not exhibit any symptoms of being colorblind. No symptoms. So if somebody, whether it's male or female, is only a carrier, then they are heterozygous and they exhibit no symptoms. So if anything is linked to an X or a Y, a male can probably not be a carrier, just because they only have one of these to give away. And if one of them is affected, then more than likely the male is going to exhibit a sex-linked trait or a disease of whatever that gene is carrying. So we'll go ahead and take a look at a Punnett square, which is down there at the bottom of your page. And this is what yours looks like. So we've got a Punnett square that says we're taking a female, which is up here at the top. We're taking a normal female, and we are crossing them with a dad who has color blindness. So what that would look like is, we'll take this X, we'll drag it down, put it here. We'll take this XB and put it here. We'll take this X, bring it down here, and drag over the Y as well. We'll take this X, drag it down, XB, and then a normal XY again. So first of all, I would need you to tell me, what are the offspring? What are the potential chances that these two parents are going to have a colorblind child? So first of all, are there going to be any colorblind children in this family? You should have been able to tell me no, there will not be. Because this individual here is a carrier, and it's a female carrier, just like this. This individual here is also a carrier. And then we have two normal males. So there will be no colorblind individuals. Now, if these two children up here, these female daughters, if they decided to have a child, they could potentially get colorblind children, but not at this time. So that is how you would cross something like this. You use subscripts in sex-linked traits, and if on your test I ever give you something like this, which I probably will for color blindness exactly, you should star this and know how to do it. Using subscripts, be able to tell me who is affected and who is not affected, and I will not give you one of these keys, so be aware. All right, moving on to our next one. We've got something called incomplete dominance. Incomplete dominance, you should just need to know the definition. It's when an individual displays an intermediate phenotype of the parents. And I believe some of you asked in class when we were talking about tallness, why people are medium height, or why people express the trait of a dad being really tall, a mom being really short, and them being in the middle. Well, that is because of something called incomplete dominance. That is when something gets the middle phenotype, and remember, phenotype is a definition for looks. They exhibit a middle part of it. So, example here is when a red snapdragon flower is crossed with a white snapdragon flower, their offspring are all pink. So here's our parent generation. A white mixed with a red is being crossed, and that forms all children being pink. Whenever these ones are self-fertilized and they cross into an F2 generation, we get a few mix. We get a white one, we get two pink ones, and we get one red one, which is about a 25, 50, 25% chance. So I want you to be able to come up with your own example here and think of something that can relate to everyday life, whether it's tallness, whether it is hair color, eye color. Come up with an example on your own of incomplete dominance and write that down to finish your notes off. And I'll give you about 5 seconds right there. All right, so moving on. Our second to last one, we're almost done. Second to last one is codominance. Codominance is when two dominant traits are both expressed. We can't determine, or the traits can't determine which one wants to be fully dominant. So both of them get expressed. This example would be roan horses. Roan horses have both red and white hair, and that's a picture here below. Second one is something that's in us, which is both type A, B blood. Both of those are dominant. Type A is a dominant trait. Type B is a dominant trait, and when they're mixed, both of them show, which is why we have type AB blood. Just write that definition down, star it because you will have to know it for your test, and as well as starring incomplete dominance, you'll have to know that one too. Okay, our last one is called multiple alleles. Having multiple alleles, more than two, and trying to cross it on a Punnett square is almost impossible. And so we can't cross it with, there are no caps, capital letters for dominant traits, and there are no lowercase letters for non-dominant traits, because with multiple alleles, multiple of them could be dominant. So our example is going to be blood type. Don't write anything down quite yet on your sheet. I gave you two examples that you're going to use to cross on your own, but I want you to take a look at this one first. First of all, a person can potentially be a homozygous dominant individual, and that means that they have type A blood, which would be homozygous dominant of AA. Secondly, they could have type B blood. Type B blood would be a dominant B blood, which would be capital B, capital B. You could be homozygous recessive, and that would be type O blood, which would be O and O. And then last two you could have would be heterozygous. You could still be type A blood if you are AO, type B blood if you are BO. And then codominance where A, B share the blood type. So here are all of our blood types in this chart to your right there. And if we go ahead and cross, what I'm going to cross is I'm going to cross a homozygous dominant type A male, and that means that they're going to be type A, That is a homozygous dominant. And I'm going to cross it with a heterozygous type B female. Now this is heterozygous, so there's no lowercase letter. If we tried to cross this with a lowercase letter, let's say we cross it with big B, small b, you will get really, really confused because you will say, here's an A and a big B, crossing those two. Then we're going to drag this A down to here, and we drag this B over. You're going to say, oh, all of them have type AB blood. That is very incorrect. That is very incorrect. So what we need to look at is if we cross a homozygous type A and a heterozygous type B, we have to use O as a recessive. So that'll look like this. I'll cross my A homozygous, capital A, capital A. I'll cross my B heterozygous, B, O is the recessive, and I can get the potential offspring. So that would look like this. I would say that 50% of my children will be type AB blood, which would be a co-dominant AB, or I would say 50% of them would be, hopefully you can tell me that these two are type A blood because they have an A recessive O. And so those will be type A bloods. Now, what I want you to do is practice on your own. I want you to cross this right here. If a man is homozygous for type B blood, which is your example on the right, and a child with homozygous woman with type A blood, what are the possible blood types of this child? Go ahead and try that on your own. Pause this video because I'm going to give the answer right now. What you do is you would cross homozygous type B is capital B, capital B. The next thing you do is homozygous type A blood, which would be a capital A, because it is homo for same. And we've got AB, AB, and all of the children would exhibit that co-dominant AB blood type. All right, moving on to your last one. Your last one is on the left there. I want you to be able to tell me if Johnny is adopted or not. He thinks he's adopted. He has type O blood. He wants you to figure out if his parents, Jeff, who is a homozygous type A blood, and Jill, who is a heterozygous type B blood, if they are his parents. So cross his parents to see if Johnny is potentially one of his children. When you're finished, take a picture of these notes, submit them.